So does this mean I always look like somebody's disaffected niece? Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2019 Marvel superhero film Captain Marvel. It stars Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, Jude Law, and Ben Mendelsohn, and was directed by the duo of Annette Boden and Ryan Fleck. Captain Marvel is the 21st entry into the MCU and serves as the origin story and first introduction of the titular character. It's set in 1995 and focuses on Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson, who is part of an alien culture known as the Kree, and works for what's essentially their military. She has no memory of her life prior to 1989, and following a battle with the Kree's enemy, the Skrull, ends up on Earth with the goal of preventing the Skrull from obtaining a powerful device. It's not long before she encounters Nick Fury, played of course by Samuel L. Jackson, and the two of them team up to prevent the device from falling into the wrong hands. I have to admit, I wasn't very impressed with this movie at first. Granted, I didn't have any anticipation for it going in. As has been the case with nearly every MCU origin movie that's been released since the first Avenger, I didn't know the character even existed before the film's announcement. So, with no real expectations and zero knowledge of the character, I was a bit underwhelmed by the first 20 minutes or so. It didn't do much for me, and it was honestly a little hard to grasp the context of what was going on. Maybe that was just me, but it felt a little bit disjointed, and like it was dancing around key plot and character points without ever actually touching on them. Now, I get that at that early point in the movie, Carol Danvers doesn't know anything about her past, but I still feel like we could have been given a stronger introduction to her character. Luckily, once she arrives on Earth, things really improve. It takes on qualities of a bunch of different genres. There's the obvious fish out of water element, but then there's also a buddy cop vibe with the pretty entertaining interactions between Danvers and Fury, and there's even a touch of paranoid thriller with the Skrulls and their shapeshifting abilities. While sticking to the basic MCU formula, there were a few plot turns that I wasn't expecting. Of course, there were some major ones that I could see coming a mile away, and there was the typical CGI-heavy finale, but really, having something unexpected happen in the 21st film of a franchise? I'd say that's a success. Another success was the in-movie recognition of how weird all of this is. How many superhero movies have we seen where everyday people walking down the street don't even bat an eye at somebody in a cape flying past them, or some spandex-clad mask-wearing hero sprinting by? The people in this movie actually react. As Danvers walks around the city, clad in her Kree armor, just about everybody is staring at her, because she stands out. The fight on the train is another good example. Rather than people blindly running from the fight like we see in other movies, they react normally here, with gasps and ohs, and even attempts to break it up. Character-wise, I thought this movie was pretty solid. I know the film has been getting a lot of flack for the character of Captain Marvel, that she's bland or boring or wooden. Depending on who you talk to, the blame for that could be on Brie Larson, the directors, or the writers, but I think it's unwarranted. I understand the basis of the criticism. For much of the movie, Danvers is pretty restrictive with her emotions. We're used to very bombastic characters in the MCU, like Tony Stark or Thor or even Nick Fury. But we've got to remember that Danvers has just been trained as a Kree warrior for the past 6 years, and it's all that she can remember. In the first couple minutes of the movie, when she's sparring with Jan Rog, he literally tells her there's nothing more dangerous to a warrior than emotion. So, should it really surprise anybody that she's not extremely upfront with her emotions? Now, Samuel L. Jackson has been playing Nick Fury since Iron Man, so we know he's good in the role. But seeing the younger, slightly less cynical version was surprisingly satisfying. Speaking of surprising, his de-aging CGI was fantastic. You know it's good when you don't even notice it after the first couple scenes, and he was a main character in a good chunk of this film. Another surprising main character? Goose the cat. Now I'm a dog person, but I unabashedly loved Goose. I would say my favorite parts of this movie involved him in one way or another, and his scenes were also the ones that got the most laughs out of the audience when I went to see this. Now, having grown up in the 90s, I'd be remiss not to mention the nostalgic aspects of this movie, with its 1995 setting. Retailers like Blockbuster and Radio Shack, toys like troll dolls, koosh balls, and the brick that was the original Game Boy, technology like incredibly slow computers, payphones, and pagers, it all added this very comfortable feel to the movie for me. And it didn't feel overdone. The 90s aspects were incorporated into the plot and never had that, hey, remember this? What about that? Kind of feel. Along those same lines, the soundtrack was pretty great too. Garbage, Nirvana, No Doubt, Hole. It's not even really nostalgic for me. Honestly, I still listen to all those bands on a regular basis. So here's a little tidbit regarding the music for you. Come As You Are by Nirvana has been my ringtone since high school. And there's a scene in this movie that uses the song, and it just so happens that I got a text message while I was in the theater, and my phone vibrated in my pocket at the exact moment the song started in the scene. So I definitely had about 5 seconds of sheer adrenaline rush panic, thinking my phone had somehow come out of vibrate mode and was now ringing during the movie. And after that panic started to wear off, I realized that I was actually a little bit bothered by where in the film the song was included. The scene it's used in is one between Danvers and the Supreme Intelligence, which is basically a Kree artificial intelligence that uses memories to take the form of someone from an individual's past. So this song is playing in the memory-created artificial space, but it doesn't make any sense, because there's no way that Danvers would have memories of that song. Come As You Are was released on Nirvana's Nevermind album in 1991, a full 2 years after Danvers was already with the Kree. Whatever. I love the song, so I really can't complain about its inclusion too much. So, how was the first female-centric film in the MCU? It was pretty good. I enjoyed the tonal mix of this one. It had its humor that landed some of the time, but I'd say the primary tone was meant to be empowering. I'm not sure it reached the levels of empowerment it intended, but I definitely found it to be an interesting and enjoyable look into a portion of the MCU timeline we've never seen before. Alright, so let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Number one on the pro side for me has got to be Goose the Cat. I don't know exactly what that says about the rest of the movie, but I loved Goose. He provided humor that consistently landed for me and was part of nearly all my favorite scenes in the film. Plus, you've gotta love the Top Gun reference, especially since our first glimpse of this feline star was at an Air Force base. The second pro was the 90s setting. I'm sure it's mostly the nostalgia talking, but I loved all of the 90s references that were integrated into this film. Everything from Blockbuster to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Plus it had a great soundtrack with music I really like and still listen to regularly. The third pro was Samuel L. Jackson's de-aging CGI, which allowed him to portray a young Nick Fury. It's not the first time the process has been used, but I think it's probably the most impressive example we've seen so far. They also de-aged Clark Gregg's Coulson, but it's the work on Fury that blends seamlessly and goes unnoticed after the initial shock of seeing a young Jackson again. As far as cons go, my number one is definitely the first act. Coming in with no knowledge of Captain Marvel, I found myself struggling to understand the context of her role in the Kree Star Force, as well as the history behind the conflict between the Kree and Skrull. I know that very little about Danvers' backstory could be revealed that early in the movie, but I think the film could have benefited from providing some more of her history since joining the Star Force. It's hard to care about a character you don't know, so even that little bit of context could have made her character arc more meaningful. My second con was the exceptionally MCU-esque ending. I'm not going to give away anything specific, but the finale devolves into an incredibly CGI-heavy super battle. Visually, it's pretty good. Really, all of the CGI in this film is very well done. But there's just something about the endings of these superhero movies from the last 7 or 8 years that bothers me. Maybe it's just a case of finale fatigue, but giant CGI battles with hordes of disposable enemies just doesn't do it for me anymore. It's not something I hated about this movie, it's just something that was disappointingly formulaic. I'm gonna give Captain Marvel 3.5 out of 5 paws. I had a pretty good time with this movie, but it didn't blow me away. I'd say it's solidly a mid-tier MCU film for me. That being said, I typically enjoy Marvel movies, so even ones that are just, it's okay, are still better than other average movies. I would recommend Captain Marvel, obviously to fans of the MCU. I doubt it'll be your favorite, but it also won't be your least favorite, unless you're being intentionally contrarian for whatever reason. It also seems like Captain Marvel is going to have a fairly significant role in Avengers Endgame, so seeing her origin story wouldn't be a bad idea in order to prep for that. If you liked Captain Marvel, my first recommendation is probably the most obvious one, Wonder Woman. I know we're jumping from Marvel to DC, and that's a little sacrilegious in some circles, but how can I not mention DC's first female-centric movie when talking about the MCU's? Personally, I think Wonder Woman pulled it off quite a bit better, so if you liked Captain Marvel, I think you're really gonna like this one too. If the female empowerment or even the superhero aspect wasn't the thing you were most drawn to in Captain Marvel, I'd recommend Terminator 2: Judgment Day for a plot that has more than its fair share of parallels with this film, as well as a healthy dose of 90s nostalgia. Alright, a few questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Captain Marvel? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what other female superhero, Marvel or DC, would you like to see get her own movie? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it so you can see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.